hi. I don't really want to talk to you because I don't know where I am. This is really weird. I think I understand why. Yeah, that's a very good question. Do you want me to genuinely answer it, or what stopped you from just eating chicken? Why were you eating a snake?
That's a really good question.
Who's going through an existential crisis, but also like screws around with this woman and then like is really derogatory about all kinds of things. So I'm currently at Cheltenham Ladies College with a full scholarship which covers all of my education as well as a few extras. I've always been a little bit too mature for my age. I remember this one particular boy who I had a very sort of love-hate relationship with because he was always so annoying. But he was annoying because he said things that were almost difficult for me to accept. But I liked that he said things that were difficult for me to accept because it meant that I could develop myself into someone who could accept those things. I didn't understand what was going on. It was the most difficult thing I had ever faced. Our meaning can come through things such as art, and not just art in sort of its sort of physical sense, but in the idea of creativity, in terms of human ingenuity. I've received 4 offers from everyone except Cambridge, for which I have an interview. Having the ability to realize that change is okay. I think we've covered so much. I cannot believe that we've been talking for this long. Like, time just flew so quickly. But we all know her.
Before you watch this video, I just want to say Merry Christmas, everyone. I hope you are feeling very festive as we lead up towards December and towards Christmas time. And I hope I can channel more positive energy towards you through my podcast on this very amazing period of time. Before you delve into the video, I want to ask for a massive favor. We are coming towards the end of season 1 of the podcast. Season 2 is going to drop real soon though. But before we go into season 2, if you haven't caught up on some episodes yet, make sure you click the links up in the corner of the video right now to catch up on those. I promise you, we had some amazing conversations. We've had Brentford coaches, Brentford trainers, CEOs, co-founders, psychologists, A-star students, and so many inspirational people. So don't miss out. Make sure you catch up on season 1 because season 2 is going to be even better, even bigger. I'm going to be bringing some amazing content. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe and let's get straight into the video. Welcome back everyone to the Jerry Exclusive Podcast. Today on this brand new episode, I have an exciting guest, a phenomenal student, but an even more phenomenal character. I'm very, very pleased to welcome Wright on the podcast, everyone. Ona, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Jerry.
Nice. At the start of every podcast, I like to do a set of never have I ever questions, just to like, as an icebreaker, to get to know the guests a little bit more. So I'm guessing you've played never have I ever before?
Of course, yes.
Okay, nice. So I'm going to start off. Oh, actually, I didn't even explain the rule. So I usually have like cards, right? This is the 5th podcast where I've forgotten to bring my cards and I just keep forgetting. I don't know. But I got 2 cards. One says I have and the other one says I have never. And like I usually put them up or if you have never. But for this one, because we don't have the cards, just do a thumbs up if you have and do a thumbs down if you haven't. So yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So first question. Never have I ever fallen asleep in an important meeting.
Never.
Wow.
No, I mean, unless lessons count as important meetings, then definitely not.
What's like the longest sort of, it doesn't even have to be like an important meeting, just like the longest sort of meeting that you've been part of?
That I've been part of?
Yeah.
Or that I've fallen asleep in?
You've been part of, just any?
Probably, goodness, things like student councils or student voice is what we call it in my school. Those are probably the longest meetings that I've been in.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but there's some times where like it's just like how I did this work experience, which I really wanted to do, but like something just kept making me fall asleep. Even the days where I would have 8 to 9 hours of sleep. And there was one embarrassing moment where like it was on the last day of the work experience. And on the last day, there were usually like some executive that will come down, and like you get this 1 in a million chance to like go into a meeting with like, the executives. And I fell asleep in that meeting, in the most important meeting. And thankfully, all the people that were there were pretty chilled. They just like woke me up. They started laughing and making jokes about it. But it could have gone way. They would have been like, "This guy is not serious. Get him out of here." But they're so chill.
Oh my god, definitely.
But something about me, I just fall asleep at the weirdest times. But anyways,
I completely get that.
maybe I need to sleep more. But going on to question 2. Never have I ever got lost intentionally.
Intentionally, I don't know. I'm gonna have to be like this because I get lost so often that it has to be intentional at some point. So, for example, like the place I live, like the place I live, I've lived there for a very long time. I think I've lived there for like 8-9 years in London. And because it's London, there's like obviously so many like sort of signposts. You should be able to like, oh, there's a McDonald's there, or oh, there's a petrol station there. So you should be able to get your way around pretty easily, right?
Yeah.
On going, because my mom sends me like, she sends me to the African shop, go and buy like okra, whatever, go and buy what you need to get. Yeah. And it takes me 30 minutes to walk to this shop. If you imagine the path being a circle, my house being here and the shop being there, I decided to go all the way around. And to be fair, part of me wanted to be at the house. I'm not sure how much of me really wanted to be at the house to do a really long tour to get to the African shop, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Those trips to the shop sometimes are so impromptu. You don't know it's coming. You might be doing something complete. You might be sleeping. Your mom's like, wake up.
For real.
Go now.
Genuinely.
Go. Yeah. Are you someone who like, you love shopping, or like you love going out a lot, or you're more of a homebody?
It's one of those things where I'm definitely a homebody, but if I go out, I'll enjoy it. I'm just too lazy to actually step out in the first place.
Yeah, I can understand that. I don't know if I've gotten lost intentionally. I probably have, because I've gone on some interesting adventures, but I probably have sometime. But next question. Never have I ever eaten something unusual, like a snake, or like an antelope, or whatever it is, like some exotic animal or food or something.
Oh, no. You have? What did you eat?
I ate a snake.
What?
Yeah. It was well cooked, so like, there's no infection or anything like that. Yeah, we cooked it like 3 times just to make sure, because snakes are wild animals, they're all over the place. But it was like, because the snakes have really strong spines, so like the bones, like, they look very tiny, but they're so strong. Like you try to bite them, you probably break your teeth. Like they're so rigid, but it doesn't taste like too different from normal meat, normal chicken and stuff like that, as long as you season it right.
But what stopped you from just eating chicken? Why were you eating a snake?
That's a really good question. I think it was just one of the things where I was young, and I was just like, why not? Because my parents, one of my family friends brought it when they went on a trip or something, and so they just said, guys, I brought this snake. Do you guys want to try? Like, cool, why not?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've eaten antelope as well. I haven't tried snails yet. I don't know, something about snails. They just, every time I see one in the yard, I'm like, nah, I don't want to eat that gooey stuff. But you sure you haven't eaten anything like snails, anything like that?
The most strange thing I could have possibly eaten is like, I don't know, it's combination foods. Like how some people eat chips and ice cream together.
Yeah.
or they put crisps in their ham sandwiches, but that's pretty normal. That's pretty normal. I think probably the weirdest one is trying. Do you know what Marmite is?
Is it that
Marmite?
golden brownish?
No, it's like basically some form of vegetable extract as a jam kind of thing. And I had it with a sausage, and that was terrible. It was absolutely disgusting. The most disgusting thing I've ever eaten.
Yeah, I could definitely hear you. The combinations. Combinations is my middle name. Like combination every day. Rice cakes and ice cream on pizza. Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's funny. Combinations every day. I think I get it from my mom, because my mom is a professional at combinations as well. But
You're telling me that your mother eats ice cream on pizza?
not the exact same combinations, but she does stuff like cabbage and like avocado or something. Just weird vegetable mixtures. Maybe it's like
Fair enough.
some sort of niche diet that she's trying to get on. I don't know. She's all over the place sometimes with combinations. But you know, sometimes it's fun. Sometimes you try a combination and you're like, oh, it's actually really good. Like ice cream
Fair enough.
and cereal for me, it's really nice. Like cornflakes.
I mean, it seems to make more sense, because if you think of the cereal as like ice cream toppings, then
Yeah. What's your favorite food though?
my favorite food. I don't know what it is, but I think I have a very, very bland palate. So whenever I get asked, "Oh, what's your favorite food?" I can't say. But I think that if you ask me what's my favorite dessert, then we're getting somewhere.
Okay.
Because I have a very big sweet tooth, but I think I love all foods with cream in it, like whipped cream, like really fluffy cream. So like chocolate eclairs, for example, they're so good. I love them so much. Or trifle and stuff like that. So anything with cream and sugar, that's my go-to.
What's your favorite like chocolate bar? I'm gonna guess and say Kinder Bueno.
Oh no, those things are terrible.
No,
I hate them.
you don't like Kinder Bueno.
No, not at all. They're just, I like sweetness, but I can't physically consume something that is pure syrup, sugar. Ugh, no.
What about Bounty? You have to like Bounty. Come on.
I love it. I love Bounty.
Nice.
Nobody else does, but it's better for me, more for me.
Nice. For some reason, people hate on Bounty. Like most of my friends don't like Bounty.
I know.
Yeah,
It's so unnecessary. But you know what? I'm not going to persuade them otherwise, because when they don't want to eat it, I can. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Next question. Never have I ever forced myself to read a book that I didn't enjoy.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. What was your book?
The most recent one. Oh my god, it's the weirdest thing. So I have a friend who's one of my really close friends. She's applying for like Asian studies at uni, and so because of that, she's reading a load of like basically Japanese books in translation. And then there's this one book which she was like, "Oh, you seem to like this kind of sort of psychological type things," and it's a really short book, probably not more than 50 pages. It was absolutely dreadful. It was basically about this Japanese actor who's going through an existential crisis, but also like screws around with this woman, and then like is really derogatory about all kinds of things, and then ends by going, "Well, this is just the entertainment industry." And then I look at all the critics, and like everyone's like, "Oh my god, yes, this writer has made the perfect sort of depiction of what it's like to be a Japanese man in such a society in the entertainment industry, and is touching on all the dark sides." And I'm like, "You've got to be joking."
Yeah, so sometimes when you read like the reviews on the book, it's like they're exaggerating sometimes with the words they use. Like, it's so passionately twisting and so inconveniently, like it's just like calm down, like just tell me if it's like good or bad. Don't be like, this is like a top tier, emasculating,
Oh,
descriptive, like just all over the
no.
place. And then you finally read, and it's like, nope, nope,
You're lying.
yeah. But for me, I'll probably say the book that I didn't enjoy. I mean, the first part I didn't enjoy, but when I kind of got into like the middle bit, I started to enjoy it a little bit.
Mm.
Maybe because I forced myself, like brainwashed myself. But I'll probably say The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. Like, you know,
Mhm.
that old book. Because the first bit was just like, he was just, I don't know what he was talking about. He was using analogies, and the language was really like archaic as well. Like, so that put me off.
Mm.
Like every other word I had to search up in the dictionary, or just, it was just like really just old school sort of structure. But then when I got into like the
Mm.
main bits, like where he was like talking about like wars and stuff like that, that was a little bit more like, okay,
Mm.
I can get through this. But
Fair
I feel like,
enough.
yeah, I feel like when you get to uni, obviously you're applying to uni as well. When you get to uni,
Mhm.
there's a lot more reading, which some of it you're gonna like, some of it you might not like. Like what are you
Yeah.
applying for again?
I'm applying for philosophy.
Philosophy, yeah. I feel like stuff like philosophy, law, English, there's a lot of reading
Mhm.
involved. Like I have a friend,
Definitely.
yeah, I have a friend who goes to Oxford, and she has this I think she does law. Yeah, she has this book.
Mm.
It's bigger than the Bible, and the pages are thinner than the pages in the Bible. And like
Oh my
it
God.
tells me one page is just like a whole dictionary of words. It's crazy. And like she's like, I'm never gonna finish this. I was like, I agree. You might as well just get a
I so
summary or
get that
something.
though.
That's just crazy. But yeah, books are enjoyable most of the time. But sometimes you just have that
Mm.
one book that just puts you off. Are you like an avid
Yeah.
reader? You read a lot?
I'm trying to get back into it because I'm sure that like I realize that everybody perhaps had this phase when they were younger where they just had reading everything and they could read like without stopping and I could just finish a whole book in a day. But now obviously my concentration is, it's not what it used to be. So I'm
Mm.
slowly trying to get into the habit of reading instead of like a lot, reading consistently. So for example, I just recently finished a book by reading a little bit of it every night, and it was The Secret History by Donna Tartt. It was a very light read. Well, not light read, very like murder mystery type read. But I enjoyed it, and I was just very proud of myself, being like, I just finished a whole book through consistency and effort. I mean, now I've moved that on to like actual philosophy now, which is a little bit of a hard read before bed. Um, but yeah, so I do enjoy reading. It's just like finding the time and the space for it and the concentration for it can be really, really hard, especially being in school.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And like I find that maybe this is just for me, but I find that when I alternate between fiction and non-fiction is better
Mm,
because you go from reading
yeah.
a heavy non-fiction book with all this
Hmm.
statistics and real life stuff, and then you go to something about
Yeah.
some fictional fairy tale character. It kind of balances it
Yeah.
out. Yeah, that's what I find.
Hmm.
Do you have
Or
any
even
other?
like, oh sorry,
Yeah,
just even light non-fiction. So for example, I wanted to start reading this travel log that someone had done, which is just like, oh, it's about places far away or somebody going on a journey, but it's still real, but it's just like not as complicated and requiring a dictionary right next to you.
yeah, yeah. Have you ever read a book where like once you finish it, you have to sit down and just reflect for a bit and just be like, wow, that was really good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course,
yeah.
definitely. I think one of the books that was like that for me was probably it is philosophy, but it's philosophical fiction. The Outsider by Albert Camus. Um, it's very because it's a very like deep book,
Yeah.
but also meaningless at the same time because that's what he was trying to convey. It was just kind of like, well, what do I do now? you know, it was very. I don't know. I remember just sitting for a long time after reading it.
Yeah, yeah. It hits you hard, and you're like, Wow. Like, I need to change
Yeah.
something about myself. Or maybe sometimes you're like, I don't need to change anything about myself. I just need to and as to what I am. I think the book I read
Mm.
that really like made me just stop and reflect was probably this book called The Inner Game of Tennis. Like it's sort of a psychology
Mhm.
book as well. More about it's using psychology in sports to apply into real life. And just like the two different sort of brains. I'm pretty sure you've heard about this. Like you have your type 1 brain and like your type 2 brain, like your conscious and subconscious and stuff like that. And it's just talking about how
Mhm.
to like silent your conscious and let your subconscious take over and stuff like that. I just found it really interesting.
Mm.
But
Wow.
yeah. Last question. Never have I ever been awake for more than 24 hours.
I I have. Yeah, I
Uh,
definitely have.
what was it? Studying, I'm assuming. Probably studying.
Um. Oh, definitely not studying.
Not studying.
I think I'm just trying to go through all the times that I have pulled an all-nighter. Um, and most of the times that I have pulled an all-nighter, it has been because I was playing that one game that I could not stop right this second, and I was the only person up at night, so why not just keep playing? Or I was reading I was reading a webtoon.
What's that? What's the webtoon?
Definitely. Webtoon?
Yeah.
They're like Korean comics basically. Like manhwa.
Like anime.
Yeah. Just Korean, not Japanese.
Oh, oh, okay. Are you into anime though?
I was really into it. I think I read more now than I watch again, kind of because like it's a lot easier to read something for 5 minutes than to watch something for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely.
I used to be into
Are
anime,
you?
but yeah, I used to be like really, really heavily into anime. But then like it's just I think it was a phase because I just left
Yeah,
that phase and then I just stopped. But it's strange how you can be
fair
so
enough.
absorbed in this like anime and video games were two things I used to be addicted with. Like my parents used to threaten
Mm.
to go to bed just to get up at 3 or 4. Literally. Like this is how addicted I used to be, okay? Like my parents would threaten me at like 10 in the night, 11 in the night. Go to bed or I'm gonna take that PS4 away. I go to bed. I'll just wait until I can hear my dad snoring. When he starts snoring, I just go back downstairs. Literally, that's how addicted I was. Barely ate, barely went out, barely drank water, barely interacted with anyone. Just
Damn.
on my PS4. It was a dark time for me, but yeah. Now it's strange because I don't ever play video games anymore. So I guess I've been playing it a lot.
This has been a long time coming, guys, so I'm going to give you a very brief backstory on what this project is. So, 5 years ago, I wrote a revision guide for PE to help me with my studies at GCSE, and fortunately, I was successful enough to get a grade 9 in PE for GCSEs. And so, with this knowledge, I knew that what I wrote was very effective. I showed it to a couple of my teachers. They found it very effective as well. My head teacher supported it and found it extremely effective and beneficial for students, and my head of year and the head of department and all of that. But I didn't publish it. Fast forward 5 years now, and I'm in the process of publishing it, and this is where you come in, guys. For a chance to win anywhere from £100 to £200 Amazon gift card voucher, all I'm asking is that you go to my website down in the description below and you get a free copy, a free preview copy of this revision guide. And all you have to do next is leave a review on the website on how good or what the features are and how you found it. Once you do that, you're going to be entered into an automatic draw where you could win anywhere from an Amazon voucher worth £100 to £200. So please, guys, do this for me as I'm going through this process of launching this revision resource. So thank you again, guys. Let's get back into the episode.
Welcome back after the break, everyone. So, Honor, I feel like we have so much to like delve deeply into. Like you've just you've done a lot of stuff. Like, I'm just gonna start by saying that, and like you have so many different interests. And, like, I'm really interested to know more about like, your school as well, CLC, and just like how you got into there and what you're planning for the future. And I just feel like we have so much to delve into. Like, you told me you're interested in psychology. Was it philosophy as well, you said?
Philosophy is my main interest. Yeah.
Philosophy, okay. Yeah, philosophy, and like so many different things, which like I actually have some questions as well to ask you. So we are gonna get into all of that. But first I want to start with, how did you get into CLC, Cheltenham Ladies College?
Right. So I'm currently at Cheltenham Ladies College with a full scholarship, which covers all of my education as well as a few extras. So for example, if I decided to pick up an extracurricular, I would be covered by the school to do that. It also covers like things like trips as well. And I've been at CLC for seven years now, so since I was in year 9. And but CLC is not the first boarding school that I've been to. So I first started boarding in year 7, and I was given this opportunity through an organisation, I should say, called Royal, let me get the abbreviation right, Royal National Children's Springboard Association. I think that's what there's a lot of words in it. So Springboard. And so I spent a year and a half with them, this kind of thing where I just kind of like a youth group. And I went there every week, and then once after school every weekday, and I would meet other people. It was targeted at people of ethnic minorities, especially in particular Black people. And so I'd meet with other people my age, older than me, younger than me, a group of maybe 100 of us in this sort of youth center, and we would like basically interact with each other, take lessons there. We would learn what it means to be a leader, what it means to have gratitude. We did sort of affirmations to build confidence and stuff like that. And I was there in year 5 to year 6. And then at the end of year 6, they offered me a place. And not everyone got offered the chance to go to boarding school. They kind of, after assessing our characters and our sort of aptitudes for learning as well, about 30 of the people in my 100 people cohort were allowed to go and head to boarding school. And so I was very fortunate. My mother was the one who introduced me to the place, and she had heard it from her friends, kind of word of mouth travel. So as a result, I got into a school called Farley, where I spent 2 years because it's a prep school, finishes at year 8, and then I was moved on to CLC.
Nice. I love that bit about your mother as well, trying to, helping you, setting you up. She actually set up this podcast as well. So your mother seems like someone who always has things, working for you and always looking out for you, which is really nice to have. How did you, how do you find like the dynamics or the comparison between boarding school or day school, or like which one would you pick if you had to do just one?
Right. So, I mean, I was in a state primary school. And I do have friends who go to state schools and grammar schools as well. But it really is, I can understand why people are so obsessed with having their kids be in independent schools, because the quality of education is incomparable. Like, I don't know, you can even just start from perhaps the size of your class. So in primary school, the size of my class was 30 students to 1 teacher. But in just a year above that, in private school, it was about 15. And now my current classes, yes, it's kind of because of the course I'm on, but my current classes, the biggest class is probably about 11 people. The smallest is about 5 per teacher, and that's just one aspect, like the attention that the teacher can give you, and that's just one aspect. And then the fact that I live here, so I'm currently in my dorm room right now. There's all sorts going on. I live with all of my friends and all of my peers and classmates, and it's just an absolutely incredibly different experience. One thing I will say though is that maybe it's the boarding aspect that some people might not find is for them. Because it means, for example, that I, unlike some of my peers at state school, have not got work experience. And like, that's a really big thing. I'm like, oh my goodness, I've never had a job before. I've never worked. I've barely done any volunteering that wasn't organized by my school. And all of that stuff was quite safe, if you understand what I'm saying. Like, there was nothing sort of to go out into the real world and learn. So now when I go and make my applications for jobs in the summer, I'm actually probably, yes, I have sort of a good education, but when it comes to these basic like retail or cafe jobs or supermarket jobs, those kind of things don't necessarily matter as much as just someone who's done it before. So that might be one aspect, but it's not a major, like, I still think I would I'm very glad that I am where I am. And I think, yeah, both have their sort of natural bonuses, but I understand why there's almost like there feels like a gap between private and public education.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like what you said is really true. Like what you touched up on work experience, though, I feel like with the retail stuff, I don't think that's really something to be worried about too much, like getting into your first job, because I feel like you learn really quickly. Because
yeah, of course.
I think maybe it's just because we're teenagers, we're just quick at picking stuff up. Like I think at the summer jobs, the lower level jobs, the people looking for employees aren't really looking, like they're not trying to get like someone who is Einstein or someone who's extra phenomenal. Like my first ever summer job, the I don't know if it was a guy, but the guy who was hiring me, he literally gave me it was like a 3-minute interview, and the whole interview was just like so what's your hobbies, what kind of things you like to do, what's your favorite food, and then he just hired me. He didn't really care he just wanted to see that I was someone who was like, open and good communication or whatever. So like in that respect, I don't think like work experience is something to be worried about. From what I've seen from you, like you seem like someone who is, you can really put your head to something, and like you're outgoing to a certain degree, and like you're great at communicating and stuff like that. So I don't think you have any problems at all. But also the stuff about boarding. Fun fact about me, I actually went to boarding school for a year, and like
really,
yeah, like when I was asking you that question, I was asking it because for me, I would pick boarding school every day over day school. Even though I've been to day school for most of my life, I went to boarding school for just 1 year, but I loved it so much because of like just the relationship building is a lot more authentic.
Yeah.
How would you say like your social life is and the dynamics with your friends are?
I think I am, just regarding that aspect in particular, extremely grateful that I'm in a boarding school, because I am, or at least I was for a very long time, the kind of person who, for better or worse, tended to isolate herself. So I was much more interested in either my schoolwork or whatever extracurricular I was doing, or even just a book, than getting out of my comfort zone and talking to people. But when your comfort zone is quite literally invaded by 5 other people that you're sharing a room with, you kind of don't really have a choice but to interact with them. And I mean, now I have my own room, but when we were in year 9, I think the biggest room I had was a group of 7. And it was just like, friends were made and lost in that period of time. But it's definitely shaped me as a person. Like, my social skills kind of exponentially increased. I did not have a choice but to sort of develop them to survive. And yeah, the friends that I'm going to, because I'm in my last year now, the friends that I'm going to leave sort of this period with, I definitely think some of them will be friends for this lifetime. And so yeah, I really am, the social sort of landscape here has definitely shaped me a lot.
Yeah, 100% about the friend stuff, like lifetime friends. The friends that I left within year 7, like I probably still keep in contact with like 70% of them. Like genuinely, we're still like really good friends, even though some of them I haven't seen for like 3 years. But like just the connections are so real. For some reason, I think it's just because you're just all together all the time. So like
Yeah.
you just learn so much about each other really quickly. Like
Mm.
with that aspect of
It's very
yeah,
intense.
yeah, 100%. Especially during like the first 2 weeks, I was a little bit intimidated in the first 2 weeks of being in boarding schools because I was like 10 years old. I was like 4'2", I was a tiny kid. I was just all by myself with this massive trunk of like stuff. And the first 2 weeks were horrible. Like I had no discipline, no organization skills. I lost all of my stuff. How was your first 2 weeks? Yeah.
I mean, so my first weeks at my previous school, my first weeks here were quite different. I think so. My first weeks just boarding altogether when I was in year 7 were very much like, hi, I don't really want to talk to you because I don't know where I am. This is really weird. And then it was very like sort of slowly getting used to people. On top of the fact that my previous school was predominantly white people, predominantly people whose parents were in the army, or people whose parents were very, very rich. And granted, all of us were still just 12-year-olds, but because we were all just 12-year-olds, there were some people who were less good at hiding their privilege than others. And so that also made it a very tricky thing to navigate because I obviously didn't look like anyone else in the room, and it was a very strange experience because actually, where in my sort of primary school, I was probably one of the sort of being mixed race made me the most white person in the room. So it was there was also that dynamic to it, which was strange. But then coming here, CLC is extremely diverse. Like most students here are international students, and so I sort of blended right back in again, and I was suddenly not so special in that regard. And it made me sort of more comfortable, but also more. By that point, I had grown up a bit, and I was more sort of okay with being by myself. I was okay with sort of just sitting in my space. Nonetheless, I was still a bit shy, but I think, definitely the sort of starting in year 7 and starting in year 9 were very different experiences.
Yeah. I'm assuming then you're like a natural introvert who was sort of evolved into being more extroverted.
Yes, I think I'm someone who's basically just learnt that sort of the extent to which I'm okay with socializing with people. So, for example, if I'm in a party, I can talk to people, I can have a good time, I can laugh, even if it's like really noisy and all that stuff. And then when I don't want to be there anymore, I'm very okay with just not being there anymore. Because I know that some people, for example, they find it really awkward to like leave a room if they don't have a valid excuse. Well, to me, I would just be like, I'll be back in a second, go away. So yeah, and I think that is honestly, I owe it to sort of having to be around people all the time. Because if I didn't have the ability to like say, don't come into my room right now, like I need my time, then I would not be okay, basically.
And I love that aspect of just being able to know when to stop, being able to know when to say no and stuff like that. So important in this modern age, man. There's so much distractions and different things that you could do, just infinite amount of distractions, friends, social media, everything. Sometimes you just get to say no. Like it's equally as important to say no as yes sometimes. And also that aspect of just being able to step out of a room without feeling like you're disappointing anyone or anything like that, putting yourself first. I feel like, I can really relate to that. I've walked out of so many parties or like family events and stuff like that. Not because I didn't like them, but because like when I just reach my point, when I reach my social battery, expiry point, or like when my social battery like just runs down, I'm just like, okay, that's it. I'm gone. Like I could go sleep, I could go do something else, go for a walk. Like I just don't care. At that moment, I'm just gonna go. And like I feel like with some things I've started doing, I've been able to help me with sort of like taking care of my personal time more. So like meditation or like
Mm-hmm.
exercise and stuff like that in the morning. Like the first hour of the morning, I don't want to see anyone. It's something psychological. Like the first hour when I wake up in the morning, I want that hour to just be me and my thoughts. When someone comes downstairs,
Yeah.
like, I don't get angry at them. I'm like, go back upstairs. But like, I just know I'm not gonna be at my peak for that day when I have any social interaction in the first hour of the morning. I mean, it's just weird. But like, do you have any sort of routines or like regimens that you do to sort of, you know, keep you mentally up there?
I mean, so it's funny that you mentioned sort of like the morning sort of no interaction, because I genuinely do experience something like that in the mornings as well. And I think everyone does at like our level. So when we go down, because we have to, our canteen area for breakfast is kind of just outside, and it's no one talks. Like you could have 6 people all on the same breakfast table. Silence. We're not talking to each other. It's just like if someone sits down,
Yeah,
go back to your food, and we just don't talk. And it's like unless you have something really, really important to say that cannot wait until we see each other later in school, there's no need.
yeah,
Put that aside. I typically have most of my routine in the evening rather than in the morning because I know myself. I know that if I try to sort of think in the morning, I will go terribly, terribly wrong. So I have like this app, which is a little to-do list with all the sort of things that I need to have done by the day. And it has a function where it's gotten to the end of the day. So you do your daily review and you sort of say, okay, I've done this one. I have to do this one tomorrow, and I can plan for the future as well. So I do that before bed. I also have it's a sort of mood tracker, and I make sure to sort of do it in various times during the day. And I also do that right before I sleep, just say sort of like a check-in with myself saying, okay, how are you feeling? And so it has like, before you like name the emotion, it has like a really happy face, sort of happy, middle, not so happy, very upset. And I just like sort of think to myself, where am I right now? And it's sort of very nice to sort of put me in the right space to go to bed, or if need be, do something that will put me in the right space to go to bed.
yeah,
And then I sort of pack my bag in advance and I read and then I sleep. So no screens before bed, basically.
yeah.
Like I make sure to sort of read for long enough that my eyes haven't looked at a screen for that long, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, nice. I love the aspect of just like reading to like just get your eyes tired, but in a natural way. If you get what I mean? Because I found that
Yeah.
every time I try to
Mhm.
just turn off the light and sleep, I'd never sleep because it's like you're going from fully awake, fully aroused to just nothing. Like your body kind of needs to like
Mhm.
cool down a little bit, and it just never works for me when I
Yeah.
try to sleep abruptly. So like I usually I have this playlist of just like relaxing rain sounds and stuff I just play at night, and like it's really nice. And like, I love just the routine, the way you've laid it out, from like your mood board, your daily task, and everything that obviously keep you in a sort of a mental shape. Is there any sort of one thing that you have to do that if you don't do, your day isn't going to be as good? Because for me, it's like I have to do yoga and like meditation in the morning, like every single day, Monday to Monday. If I don't do that, I know my day isn't going to be good. Is there something like that for you?
I think this is a really sort of strange one, but I have to leave my boarding house by 8 o'clock because the walk, because I have to walk to my campus, and the walk from my boarding house to the main campus is a really nice sort of like only 10 minutes. And because it's sort of semi-dark outside, especially in the winter, it's really nice. If I don't leave by 8 o'clock, everybody else starts walking down to school. And so you just get this massive rush of children of all sizes and ages, and it's actually terrible.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, I don't want to run into a little child when I'm going to school, because there are year sevens sort of walking in a line of 5 in front of me. It's not very I can't do it. So I have to leave just so that I can have my little walk in the morning by 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I like that. Just being in your own space, you know, being like sort of just giving you the time to think a little bit. Would you say you're someone who like is comfortable with being in silence? Because I don't know if you've heard this quote, but there's this quote by like might get this wrong, but Blaise Pascal, where he was like, most of the world's problems come from the inability of people to sit quietly in a room. And that just hit me so deep. So like, that's why I'm interested.
I do know that quote. I do think you've got it right, but that could also just be me getting it wrong. Yes, I think, for example, Sundays, when I don't necessarily have to be anywhere, like today, I found myself I draw my curtain first thing in the morning, because, you know, natural light, even though there's not much about outside nowadays. And I found myself sort of sitting upright in my bed and just not necessarily even thinking, just kind of letting my mind wander. And I was sort of turned towards the window, and I was just kind of like watching the rain move, because it was like in puddles, it was in the sky, it was just a very sort of still moment. And I didn't even do it on purpose. And that kind of thing does tend to happen to me, where if it's quiet and there's no human activity going around, I can sort of return into myself and just take a moment to stop. And I love it when that happens. I do.
Yeah, it's so strange, but it's so beautiful at the same time. Like, I used to have this habit. I'm pretty sure you probably did something similar when you were much younger. When I was in the car, sometimes I'll just, like, if it was raining, right, and the raindrops were going down the car window, I'll just be watching each of them drop. I'm watching them race each other. Like, I could do that for hours without ever getting bored. Like, I don't know how. And like, me and my brother used to do this thing as well, where we just watch cars go past and we'll try to guess what car it is, like what brand or logo it is, without looking at the logo. And we could do that for hours without getting bored. Like, it was just the strangest things that happen when you just like zone out sometimes. It's amazing. Yeah.
I do enjoy it.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about your time at Cheltenham Ladies College, but first I want you to like walk us through sort of your journey through life. I know that sounds like a big question, but like, just like in terms of all the way from primary school, like what makes Ona basically from primary school, secondary school, and like how your life is transitioning at the moment, and all the key lessons you've learned, and just all the key experiences that you've been through up until this point.
Wow, okay. I think, so I don't think I'm someone, because I was talking earlier about sort of how much I've grown in certain aspects, but I actually, from time to time, I look back and for example, I write a lot of diaries, so I have a lot of my sort of younger self's thoughts. And I realize that sort of the core tenets of who I am haven't necessarily changed all that much. I'm still someone, I have always been inquisitive. I've always been the annoying student in the class who asks too many questions and therefore doesn't let the class continue. I have always been very stubborn. I remember, sorry, there's a plane going over.
It's fine.
I remember I've always loved, for example, performance. I've always been that kid who would always audition for the Nativity in primary school, and I've taken that all the way with me, which lends itself to sort of me always being confident in my own shoes. I have for a very long time been told by people who, like, you know, months after they've gotten to know me, oh my goodness, I really didn't want to approach you at first. You were kind of scary. And I was like, oh, me? I do find it kind of sad when people say that, because I don't kind of scary. I don't want people to be afraid of approaching me, because I know that I don't like approaching other people. So if nobody approaches me and I don't approach them, I'm not going to know very many people. But yeah, I've always had a very sort of, this feels a bit not too humble to say this, but I've always been quite witty. I've been quick to catch on to things that maybe I shouldn't have been catching on to at a certain age. And I do love a very dry sense of humor. So in my time in primary school, though, I think all of those sort of qualities were quite raw. And because of that, it made me You know, like I said, some a bit difficult to approach. Sometimes I was a bit too quick, and that can be sort of like maybe even a bit rude to some of my peers. But I've always been someone who, in a classroom, was striving to sort of be the best. And then as I've grown, so I got taken into prep school, I realized that there were a lot of things that I didn't know. Because in prep school, I basically in primary school I had maybe 5 subjects. In prep school I had 13. So I went from only doing maths, English, religious studies, a little bit of science and IT, to doing all of those things with the sciences split up into 3, with computer science being a proper thing, with geography, history, drama, art, music. And I was just like, wow, I know nothing. But nonetheless, I think knowing nothing was more exciting. Realizing that I didn't know much meant that there were so many more things that I could learn. And that mindset that developed over sort of that period of time in prep school is still with me today. Then sort of going through prep school, I learned what maybe true friendships were. And not necessarily permanent ones, because I don't actually keep in contact with many of the people who I went to prep school with. But I remember in primary school being sort of very isolated, because whenever there was a problem, it always seemed like I was a very easy person to sort of exclude. Or people were quick to sort of change sides, and I didn't like that stuff. I think I was always been a little bit more, like, it was childish things, but because it was childish, I didn't like it. I've always been a little bit too mature for my age. And so coming into prep school, I realized that there are people who I can genuinely laugh with, people who genuinely share my sense of humor, people who genuinely want to have really difficult conversations with me. I remember this one particular boy who I had a very sort of love-hate relationship with, because he was always so annoying. But he was annoying because he said things that were almost difficult for me to accept. But I liked that he said things that were difficult for me to accept, because it meant that I could develop myself into someone who could accept those things. And so I had quite a sort of, rivalry with this kid, because he was very intelligent too. And we both had a lot of pride in our intelligence. I guess I'm moving on to CLC. I sort of reacquainted myself with the idea of cultural diversity. I didn't really obviously think of it much in primary school, because, we were just kids. Okay, someone's a little bit darker, someone's a little bit lighter. We don't really see that. But then growing up and coming back into sort of a more diverse area, I slowly looked at people in a different way. Not necessarily with a prejudice of any kind or in a sort of bad or good way, but just differently, because of my experiences. And so issues such as race, gender, sort of socioeconomic levels, political things, they've all kind of got mixed up into this massive melting pot that is CLC. The people here have very strong opinions. Most people are very open to being challenged, which I love, especially my current philosophy class. We talk about all kinds of things there, and it's always quite relevant, and I really enjoy that. But sort of coming back to before sixth form, this period of time, which was when I was taking my GCSEs, I think I realize now in hindsight that I didn't maybe think of them as seriously as I should have. To me, studying was easy, and so studying was something that I did whenever I could be bothered. I kind of just let myself flow through lessons, and I always enjoyed them still. Things like physics and the really challenging ones were really always enjoyable. But it was in those years that I discovered my passion for acting. So I tried out musical theatre, realised I couldn't sing, so went back to solo acting, and enjoyed that. I really, really regret not being in more performances during that period of time, but obviously that was when COVID hit. So I only had 2 terms in year 9 before COVID struck in March. So March 2020. And so that was always, it was a very interesting challenge, because I hadn't made many friends at the time. And so I had to sort of reacquaint myself with being alone, which I didn't mind as much, but I realize now that there's a reason that I can't remember much of what happened during COVID. And it's probably because it was quite tricky for me being someone who was still growing, and also sort of had to get used to like taking lessons online for a very long period of time. Although I was much more fortunate than others because I had access to technology at the time. I had access to teachers who were willing to be there, teachers who were trying their best despite the difficulties. So my education wasn't necessarily as impacted by COVID as many, many, many other students my age, and even in your age as well, were. But yeah, that's probably the first sort of period. Even though that's quite a large part of my life. Sixth form, I would say, is probably a new era for me. It's a very different stage of development went on in sixth form, because I finally learnt what anxiety was in terms of studying. I finally learnt what difficulty was. I finally learnt that, oh, you can't not revise because that doesn't work anymore. If you don't revise, you fail.
Welcome back after the break, guys. We were just getting deep into Anna's journey through sixth form, and she was talking about how she transitioned, going from prep school, going into CLC, and now going into sixth form. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe before we get back into her story. So Anna, tell us, how was your sixth form?
So yeah, as I said before, I think I found the GCSE period a little bit too smooth sailing. And so I was unable to make developments such as, what do I do when things start going wrong? And what do I do when actually I cannot just get good grades by listening in class? The period of the first term of SSE1, sixth form, my first year at sixth form, was very difficult. I do the International Baccalaureate, which means that I do 6 subjects, 3 at a higher level and 3 at a standard level. And the subjects that I started with at high level were maths, physics, and chemistry. That was very difficult because at the time I thought, oh, I'm definitely a STEM student. Because of my GCSE results, I noticed that sort of the exams that I had the highest percentage in were, in fact, STEM subjects, or at least that's what I thought to myself. I recognize now, actually, that if I look at those grades properly, it's just that because I had done 4 sciences, biology, chemistry, physics, and computer science, I was just telling myself, oh, I've done more of them, and I've done more of them well, definitely a STEM student, when actually the highest percentage grade that I got was 93% in drama. Kind of hints to me that maybe that's what I should have done. But, well, we're here now. So starting in SFC, we have a different naming system in school for year groups, but lower sixth, being in lower sixth, the first term was incredibly difficult. Higher level maths can probably be equated to in between A-level mathematics and further maths, so it's somewhere in between. And the gap between further maths and high-level maths is simply because the high-level maths course is a lot more narrow, so they do less stuff than in further maths, because 6 subjects can't do as many. And I don't think I'd ever felt so low because of education before. Doing maths and physics at the same time, which were both extremely conceptually challenging subjects, meant that I was encountering situations where no matter how much I paid attention in class, I didn't understand what was going on. I realize now that my sort of mind doesn't work in the same way that some of my really sort of mathematically inclined peers' minds do. I cannot visualize like sort of the way that equations sort of can be manipulated. I'm not very good at visualizing graphs straight off the bat. I'm very good with like visual things, which is why I sort of like a 3D visualization. I'm very good with that, which is why I dropped high level maths to a standard level and kept high level physics. It was a very big decision because naturally, when you're applying for STEM subjects, or in fact, many other subjects as well at university, maths is something that is a big requirement. And unfortunately, universities do not accept sort of standard level maths to be sufficient for many of the STEM courses that you can apply for. They want high level maths. And so this meant that I had to seriously consider whether or not I'd be willing to almost close a couple of doors down. But I didn't think of it like that at the time. I genuinely, and my mother actually agreed with me, and she's someone who genuinely cares about my education. She cares very much about my sort of future prospects and my career choices. But more than anything, she cared about my mental health. I was really upset at the time. And it wasn't because I was having to give up maths. It was because I was not comprehending something that I'd been able to comprehend my entire life. I felt very much like a failure. And I felt almost guilty that I was feeling relieved that I was allowed to drop. It was a tough time. But what I did, so I was looking at my other subjects. At the time, I couldn't put Japanese up to a high level because it's the first time I'm learning it. I was only allowed to take it at standard level. English was one of my other standard levels, and I was like, I don't really like English that much. I'm not really sure I'd be willing to study 13 books. At higher level, you have to study 13, and at standard, you study 9. So the last thing I was left with was philosophy. My philosophy lessons at standard level were very much enjoyable. I was doing what's called the core. So I was doing sort of mind and body, I was doing free will, and I was doing identity. And those concepts were very interesting to sort of play with to me. And so I was like, since I seem to be quite good at this subject, and since I seem to be really enjoying myself, I could just put this up to high level and see what happens. And so that's what I did. And I was kind of behind because the high level course content and the standard level course content for philosophy are different. Being in a high level class meant that I had to also do this thing called philosophy of religion. So I had to catch up a whole term's worth of high level content. But fortunately, the high level content is only difficult in that it's more, and the key sort of skills required are exactly the same. So I only had to just learn some sort of philosophers and concepts that I had missed in the beginning. I was very happy with my choice, and it's something that actually I realized wasn't as big of a problem as I thought, because shortly after, in the coming weeks, many people who were doing high level maths also joined my standard level maths class after realizing that this just wasn't for them. And yeah, I think learning how to deal with failure was why I make this distinction between sort of pre-sixth form honour and post-sixth form honour, because I think my sort of mental journey there was the most difficult thing I had ever faced in my sort of time being in education. Now, at present, and many things changed as a result of me putting philosophy up to higher level. For example, and this is probably the biggest one, I'm currently applying for philosophy to university. I did a lot of research, and it seemed that the only other science sort of subject that I could apply to without having maths was something like neuroscience. And whilst neuroscience was interesting, I realized that the STEM subjects do not inspire me as much as I thought they did. So yeah, I currently do high-level philosophy, physics, and chemistry. And I think I'm comfortable with that. I still think that if I had the chance to start the whole sort of sixth form over again, I would have just gone with philosophy, maybe physics, but I'm not too sure I'm willing to go through that stress again. I would have done philosophy, drama, and potentially chemistry. I don't know. I'd have to sort of rework that one. But yeah, I'm honestly very proud of myself for being where I am today in regards to my subjects. But yeah, sixth form has been a very interesting journey. I've made many more friends we obviously had a new cohort because new people joined our year group in sixth form. And I also changed boarding house, which meant that all of the friends that I had been sort of more familiar with in my junior boarding house, I now had to sort of reacquaint myself with in a completely different setting in my senior boarding house. And all the houses get mixed up. So I have people who are from different junior houses to me in the same boarding house with me now. And yeah, I've made incredible new friends and had many more sort of deep conversations. The gap between GCSE and just sixth form was a very big gap, and I wasn't expecting it. But I think I'm very proud of myself for having almost overcome it completely.
Yeah, nice. So it's so just amazing and beautiful just to hear your journey, like the ups and downs, the side to sides, and the diagonal, everything. Just how you just navigated through all of it. You know, for like most of the times, people think if you're like a high performing student, like an ambitious student, you have a straight line and studying is just like, oh, you were always good, everything's always good with you, just upwards. But like, it's never like that, you know. Just there's always struggles and stuff like that, and there's always times where, like you mentioned, where you don't get it. I feel like that's the most scary thing, like when you don't get it at all. Like there's subjects where I can be comfortable with not understanding it, maybe because I haven't put enough effort into it, or maybe because I'm not passionate about it, or like I'm not learning a lot. But like when you actually put effort into something and you just don't get it, that's scary, because it's like my brain isn't working or something. So it's just like, you know, it's great to see that you had all these struggles that shaped you and that have turned you into the person that you are today. And also talking about the difficult conversations that you had, the deep conversations, I feel like that is so critical for like just teenagers to develop. Like you have to have difficult conversations. Without that, I just think there's going to be a lack of meaning in your life to a certain extent. Like I don't mind having some jokes, small talk here and there, but if you're someone who doesn't have meaningful, deep conversations, I sort of question that. Like, you're missing something in your life to a certain extent. And I feel like that manifests itself through just the clarity in which you think. I feel like you're a very clear thinker. Maybe I'm wrong, but like I feel like you're someone who you have a certain clarity about you and just a certain like focus and determination. And so I want to sort of ask you about that aspect of it. Obviously with CLC, there's a lot of opportunities to like challenge yourself in different skills and stuff. And you also said in your video interviews with the CLC to advertise the school, you said, you know, it's built your critical skills, your critical thinking, your analytical skills and stuff. I was wondering, are there any other sort of activities you did, like public speaking or like debating and things like that?
So I've done a couple things over the years. When I was in prep school, I definitely did a lot of debating. It was one of my favorite clubs to go to. I didn't continue with that in in CLC, primarily because the only real debating society was what's it called? Something like Young MUN, which I wasn't very much interested in politics at the time, and so I didn't really want to be part of that. So instead, my sort of speaking and performative nature went into actually doing drama. So I picked up, or rather continued, acting lessons, and currently I'm working towards my grade 8 in Lambda, which is I guess for those who don't know, the highest sort of qualification you can get as a solo actor, as a young solo actor for Lambda. And as well as this, I have done some public speaking. I've forgotten what it's called now, but we have it is essentially a debate, but it's within your house. So you as a house produce a speaker, a questioner, and a chair, and each house is pitted against a different house, and we have to sort of be on the stage in our theatre in front of, I think it's a whole year group and the year above, because we do it last year, not this year, and we just sort of debate questions, for example, about the education system, about climate change, about typically things that have been maybe recently in the news, or things that are just sort of overarching discussions of our generation. And so I've done the both times that I did it, once junior, once senior. I think I did it as a questioner. So I was someone who, because I think by this point I have said, I'm very much someone who likes sort of having challenging discussions, and I like to be the one who challenges people. So, it's the kind of thing, you prepare questions in advance, but also as you're listening to the person speak, you have to quickly write down questions that you have for this person. And the goal isn't necessarily to put them in a difficult spot. The best questioners and the ones who typically get the awards are the ones who ask the clearest questions, and the ones who ask questions which develop and sort of bring nuance into the speaker's original argument. So it's kind of like sort of the ability to empower people by challenging them was what was emphasized in those competitions. I think, and one more thing that I've done, which I'm quite proud of, is I was asked to do a talk about and at the time I just picked something that I was interested in at the time. So I did a talk on a philosophical topic. I did it on this idea of existentialism, which is essentially a philosophy which deals with the meaning of life. And it can be quite challenging to sort of cater that to sort of an audience who isn't familiar with many philosophical concepts, because it's quite a tricky philosophy to wrap your head around sometimes, and almost sometimes, if you're not careful, it can be quite not debilitating per se, but very challenging, because there are some people who genuinely believe, out of those philosophers, that there is no intrinsic meaning to life. And so I was tasked with the way of making that a positive thing, a way of making that something that actually, what I argued essentially was, the world does not have a meaning in and of itself. But what that means is people are able to create a meaning for themselves. They are able to put meaning into the world through the things that they do, through the things that they say, through the way that they act. And the best thing about this is that if the meaning doesn't exist in the world, then one can be developed, one can be refined, one can be changed over time as you as a person change over time. And it does not necessarily even have to be something that you can sort of verbalize. If you were able to ascertain a meaning in your life, you can feel very self-fulfilled from within, not from without, because it can almost be oppressive if there is a meaning and you don't live up to it, for example, or if there's a meaning that's already there but you can't find it. That can be quite sort of scary. And so that was the point of my talk. And I was sort of brought in a little bit of philosophy. So Albert Camus, for example, that's the reason why I read The Outsider, because he deals with that kind of idea of the absurd, and like how we're constantly searching for meaning, but it seems sometimes like the world around us doesn't have any. I don't know if you've ever personally experienced that, because I think I have, like times where sort of absurd tragedies happen, like people seem to die for no reason, or people seem to go through immense suffering for no reason, and we struggle to find a reason and a meaning for that suffering, and we just can't. And that's the idea of the absurd, or at least a more real world example of where the absurd might occur. And so I took those ideas and I was like, well, we can build on that. We can do something with that, because if the world won't give us a meaning, well, at least we can give ourselves a meaning. And so that was the purpose of my talk. And I did that in front of all of my peers, quite challenged, but also in front of alumni of my school, as well as sort of just people who were visiting it, in terms of like adults who were visiting it. And it was part of a general scholars conference that happened that day. And I was very pleased. Yeah, it was a wonderful experience.
If you are someone who is particularly interested in spirituality, then this is for you. But if not, then that's perfectly fine. Keep watching the video. If you want to get and learn more about spirituality products, then I have a limited offer for you. This is an amazing way for you to afford cheap spirituality products, and all you have to do is follow these 3 steps. Firstly, you have to follow this account on Pinterest. Second, you have to click the link in the bio. Third, choose whatever spirituality product you want and you can buy it for a discounted price. Make sure you do this promptly because, like I said, this is a limited time offer.
Like you learnt a lot throughout that whole process, not just about philosophy, but probably about yourself as well, and just your personality and the way you interact with people. Because I don't know about your first public speaking experience, but mine was probably the most scary moment of my life. Like when I tell you, I was trembling while I was giving the speech. That's how bad it was. Like, my name is Jerry. Like, and it was in front of the whole school, which made it much worse. But I feel like the more you do it, the more you get better at it. But yeah, it was horrible. Like there's this statistic that says people are more scared of death than they are scared of public speaking, which just shows it's a very intimidating thing to do. But going back to your talk about philosophy, I feel like when you talked about that aspect of meaninglessness in life, of just life is just life, there's no intrinsic meaning to it. I feel like there's some truth to it to a certain extent, and I do feel like that's why a lot of people hold on to faith and religion and stuff. I feel like it is important to have a faith or religion, but like it might be a spirituality thing, it might be Christianity, whatever it is. I feel like it is important to have a faith or something like that. And there was this video essay I was watching about this topic you're talking about, the meaninglessness of life, and it was just in the format of like a story of this guy that got lost. He got lost while hiking, and let me see if I'm telling it right. So this guy goes hiking, he gets lost, but he doesn't know that he's lost because wait, let me see if I'm telling it right. Okay, so this guy goes hiking, and then he's trying to like find the meaning of his life. Like, how people go out to nature, try to find the meaning of their life, get away from civilization. He tries to do that. And when he's like 2 days in, he doesn't like it. He's not finding any purpose in it. And so he goes to leave. But because he has no signal, he can't tell the people that he went hiking with that he's left. While leaving, he meets another like group of hikers. And they say, do you want to come with us? We're doing some great work. We're planting some trees and we're working for sustainability. We're improving the sustainability in the area. So he says, okay, I'll join you guys just for a little bit. And so he goes and he joins them. And then they find out that someone has been missing. And, it's like this huge panic, like, oh, let's find this guy. There's pictures of him all over the place. And so he joins in the search party. He's looking and he's looking and he's looking. And then once he's in a conversation with one of the police guards who are looking for this missing guy. And he's like, who's this missing guy? Do you have a picture of him? And then they show him a picture. And there's a picture of him. And he's like, oh, I'm right here. I've been here the whole time. And so it's sort of like a cyclical story, which is not like entertaining at all. But like, I just found it like interesting. Like the conclusion of it was just about how we're constantly trying to find purpose, but at the end of the day, the very act of finding purpose may be our purpose to a certain extent. So like, I don't know what are your thoughts on that sort of topic of like meaninglessness, or like how do you approach it in your own life?
I think that whole sort of story mirrors many things that I've read. Because initially that whole project was sort of an offshoot of me writing an essay about this topic. And this essay was part of my qualification, so it was like something I had to do really well on. I spent a long time researching it, 4,000 words in the end. And I still couldn't tell you. I'd be more open. I'm very much open to people disagreeing with me, like in terms of whether or not life has meaning. Because, for example, you brought up the idea of faith, and I came across this philosopher who essentially said that in order to overcome meaninglessness and absurdity, he's Soren Kierkegaard. We have to make a leap of faith. And in that way, we can sort of gain a relation to the world through God. And you're not meant to sort of question or reason through this faith. It is just a leap of faith. And it will anchor you in sort of what seems like a very deep and dark path to be on. And I suppose that aspect really only appeals to people who do have faith and religion. And so I've dealt with maybe atheist philosophers as well, such as Friedrich Nietzsche, and who he thoroughly believes that our meaning can come through things such as art, and not just art in sort of its sort of physical sense, but in the idea of creativity, in terms of human ingenuity, in terms of reinventing ourselves and finding what our system of values is. And that aspect of it, that aspect of Nietzsche's belief, I very much hold on to, because I think that, yes, God is there. So there is an anchor, but to me, that's not necessarily enough to define me as a human being. So, for example, God might be the meaning of life, but the individual of my human life, what is that? Because I feel like there must be something, like, there must be something human to my existence. The divine isn't enough to sort of give me pure meaning. Or at least that's what I think. And so I did say that in my talk. I do remember saying that I am someone who's gone through many things in this life, but I'm still on the path to developing myself and to finding what it is that meaning means to me. And I'm perfectly content with recognizing that I'm being on this journey. So when you say, like, maybe the purpose of our life is to find that purpose, I think I completely agree, because I could be still on this very same journey, having made maybe no progress at all until I'm maybe 70 or 80, no matter, however long I live, but still be in a state of self-fulfillment and contentment just through being on that path. And I think it allows one a sense of serenity, perhaps, with the world. Like, if you're not sort of constantly chasing it ardently, but also never feeling like you're left behind, somewhere in the middle, it leaves you a lot of space, sort of thinking, well, if something goes wrong, well, I can learn from that and I can move around it. If something goes right, I can still learn from that and learn, is this really the kind of thing that I want for myself? Or maybe it was too easy. Maybe that I need something sort of harder than that, beyond that. What kind of challenges do I want? What kind of things do I not want to be challenged on? What kind of things make up sort of the core principles of who I am? Sort of going back to when you asked me about, like, my path thus far, I told you that there are things in me that haven't changed. And that's true. There are things in me that I can track through time, and I can see, yes, this is what kind of person you are. It's just that as I discover my path and discover my way of life, the way I would like to live, the way that I think I must live, these sort of core principles become refined. They become sharpened. They become tools with which I can grow as a person and help the people around me grow as well. So yeah, I think definitely all of these experiences are learning experiences, but also ones that kind of, even if I don't learn anything, at least it happened, at least my experience has been enriched. At least I have more of them. You can never have too little experiences. So that's pretty much, I suppose, the way I like to live my life.
Yeah, amazing. I just love the way you just navigate through your thoughts, because I feel like sometimes, especially when we get older, it can be hard to navigate through what the actual essence of our thoughts are. Like, we have so many thoughts, but like, what am I really thinking? Like, what is it about? Just not just the surface level stuff, the superficial stuff, but what are my thoughts actually telling me? And I feel like you do that really well. But with that being said, we're gonna get back after the break, guys. Do not go anywhere. Welcome back, guys, after the break. I hope you're still kicking, still breathing, still living, because we've been delving into some pretty insightful stuff. I feel like this is one of the podcast where I've really gone into depth like never before. And I just love the aspect of you talking about how some of your core sort of the tenets of your personality and of who you are haven't really changed. Like, you know, the fact that you're like inquisitive, you're stubborn, you're someone who loves to learn, you're someone who's competitive. And I can relate with that to a certain extent. And I feel like when we get older as well, we learn more than what has been put into us, because everyone is born with like some sort of influence. Like when you're born at your younger ages, you're influenced by your parents, your teachers, whatever bosses, whatever leaders. But then I feel like it's really important to like branch outside of that sphere. Like when you get older, sort of get different perspectives. But at the same time, there's some identities about us that I think have been really entrenched in us by our parents. And like there's some of them that are really simple, like my name. Like my name, Jerry, comes from Jeremiah. And I don't know why. I feel like when my parents named me that, they had a jump start on creating my personality, because my parents named me that because they basically wanted me to be someone who's like, you know, biblical and stuff like that. And it turned out to be true. Like I am religious and I read my Bible every day. So like I do want to delve a little bit into your name. Like you have a Nigerian name, right? That's like your ethnic background. Yeah. And like I did some research on your name actually, and loosely, I might be wrong. You know, I'm not Nigerian, so if I'm wrong, let me know. Loosely, your name stands for like God's gift, something along those lines, right?
Yeah, so my full name is Chianyamona, and the translation that my mother tells me is that God has given me my gold, or God has given me my precious. So yes, honor means gold or precious, or sort of like a valuable connotation. So yeah, you're right. And I think you are also very correct in saying that sort of your name has a big influence on who you are. And I mean, there's two things that came to mind saying that. So there's obviously like my mixed heritage. So I am half Nigerian and half English. And so my full name is Chianyamona Jessica Wright. So you see the two, my middle name and my surname are definitely English. And then there's my first name. And so my full name is obviously like, I've only recently started communicating with people where I give them my first name fully. So all of my life I've been called like Honor, and it's just always been Honor, and it's like, hi Honor. And I only ever really I learned how to spell Honor before I learned how to spell Chianyamona. I mean, being 7 years old, less is more. But I recently kind of wanted to be like, well, this is my name. I don't really want to hide it from other people. I'd rather go through the maybe slightly tedious process of telling people my name, having them struggle to pronounce it, and then afterwards telling them, oh, you can call me Honor, it's fine. Because maybe the sort of awareness, like putting my name into the world, into the minds of other people, somehow became something that was kind of important to me. And so, you know, that's what's on my LinkedIn page. It's something that I'm going to start trying to put out there before I tell people what my shortened name is, because I don't know, maybe I just like making it a little bit difficult for people before giving them the easy way out. So yeah, there's that. And then there's also like the meaning of my name. So God has given me my gold. My mother has always told me that I sort of almost changed her life in a way. Like she really wanted a child before she had me. And then in the end, she had all of my siblings. There's 5 of us now. But I was something that gave her hope, or at least I think that's, you know, what she's been telling me. And I like being that for someone. I like being somebody's gold, something that someone's like, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful for that. I'm glad that this happened to me. I'm glad that I've had this interaction with you. I like to inspire people. So in terms of my peers, in terms of the people I talk to, and not necessarily even just my peers, like if I can have a meaningful conversation with someone who is above me, someone who wasn't expecting to be taught a lesson, someone who wasn't expecting to sort of have a meaningful conversation with a teenager, someone who probably knows a lot more than I do, if I can impart that kind of sort of shine, that goldness onto them, then I think that's something, it's a conversation well had. So yeah, I do think that my name has also shaped me, much like your name has shaped you.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you want to transform your fitness journey? I'm guessing yes. If the answer is yes, then you're in the right place. Make sure you follow this Instagram page for hundreds and hundreds of different workout videos that will take your fitness to the next level, improve your health, and it doesn't even matter what age you are or what fitness level you are. The videos are set for different challenges and different expertise levels. So this is a page for you guys. Don't miss out. Whether it's you want to accomplish a certain fitness goal, or you want to look good for summer, or you want to look good during winter, whatever it is, this fitness page can help you get there. So follow the fitness Instagram page and stay tuned for new updates and new videos. Let's go.
I like, because when I heard that name, I was like, I've heard that name somewhere. Because I've watched a lot of Nigerian movies, and I think that's why I'm so good at spotting when a name is Nigerian. Like I could probably, I'm Cameroonian, which is right next to Nigeria. I feel like I'm better at spotting Nigerian names than Cameroonians. Like honestly, every single one, like I have a 99% success rate. As soon as I hear a Nigerian name, it just ticks off in my head. Like as soon as I hear like Neka, Chinyamona, Chineke,
Oh my god.
something that sounds along those lines, I just know immediately. Have you ever been to Nigeria before?
No, I mean, I did when I was very, very young, but naturally I don't remember it. My mother always talks about wanting us to go again, but we just haven't had the chance to.
Yeah. What's like your, obviously you haven't been, but like are there any like sort of like cultural sort of aspects or like food or anything that you're interested in?
Oh, I mean, we eat Nigerian food at home all the time. Like my mother, she was like, "Well, I can only cook what I know." So she cooks us like jollof rice. I'm sure everybody knows that one by now. Moi moi, okra soup, egusi soup, everything, pounded yam every
Mm,
day. And like it's maybe I'm a bit late. My sister's always been more interested in cooking than I am, but I also occasionally from time to time like help her out, and we make big pots of rice, and it's always very fun.
mm,
And like whenever she doesn't do that, it's always oven stuff. But we've always eaten like Nigerian food, and then it's a weird one because I'm definitely in touch with that culture. Like for example, I wear my traditional clothes whenever I get the chance to, whenever it's appropriate. Sometimes I really just want to wear them for the sake of wearing it. Like I just want to go outside and like have a really nice patterned top that I'm like, oh yeah, this is Nigerian. Um, I really do like my Nigerian culture. Um, it's a tricky one for me because I am mixed race and I've always lived in England. So people might think, oh, you're definitely slightly more towards that side of things. But I think because my mother's probably the bigger influence in my life, that's not the case. I'm quite sort of evenly balanced between the two. And so when I encounter people, I don't really like to be called either way. I like to just be like, yeah, I'm mixed race, I'm English and Nigerian. I'm both. I am both and equal. You know what I mean?
yeah, I fully get that. That sort of cultural split almost. Like I'm not, but both my parents are Cameroonian, but like the fact that I live here and I've gotten used to the culture, the English culture, and I've acclimatized to it and everything. And the fact that I'm Cameroonian at the same time, sometimes I do get people in my family as well, sort of like questioning like where I'm from, like what tradition are you following and stuff like. And sometimes I just feel to myself, I don't have to sort of pick a side. It's not like a fight. I am who I am.
Yeah.
Like I don't necessarily have to label every single thing or like be more on one side or the other side. Both sides influence me as much as they do, and they both play a part. There's really no need to, I feel, quantify it or like compare it or be competitive with it, stuff like that. So I definitely relate. I mean, I'm not mixed race, but I can relate with the fact that it's like a cultural sort of push and pull between the two, and that is something that I feel like I've gotten better at just being comfortable with. Like I don't really care anymore. Like I am who I am. You know, I'm not like changing for anyone. I am who I am basically. But I was gonna ask you, when you were talking about the fact that you cook, big pots of rice with your sister and stuff like that. Is there any other hobbies that you do just like with your siblings or with yourself that make you feel happy?
Oh, I mean, so in terms of with my family, I don't know, so all of my siblings and I have two sisters and two brothers, all of them younger than me. And so I've always been maybe the one who would, when I was at home, because obviously I'm not at home anymore, I live here most of the time. I was always the one to sort of like lead them to play a game, like let's go outside to the trampoline and then like do all that stuff. I think as they grown up, we started playing like a big thing for the five of us is to play Monopoly together. So we like to do that. I won't tell you which one because if she watches this, she'll be very angry. Kind of spoiled it. One of my siblings is a ferocious cheat. She like thinks that she's being subtle, but we all know her. And this thing is, the younger ones can't fight out on it because she's one of the older siblings. So what can we do? But whenever I'm there, I put my foot down and we like get that sorted. She'll actually get mad at me for saying that, but it's fine. And so I have a very good relationship with my siblings. Recently, the youngest two have got phones now. And they're just like obviously on them all the time. But we now have like a family group chat, which I think is really sweet because they send me things that, I don't know, they are like, the generation gap. They're in Gen Alpha because they're 8 years younger than me. And so there's like, you sending me things that aren't that funny, but ha ha ha, because you're cute. But yeah, I do enjoy spending time with my siblings when I'm at home. And then by myself, I really like to listen to music. I have a very steady music taste. I think, obviously, I don't know if you have Spotify, but the Spotify Wrapped came out on December 1st. And so it was telling me all of my trends and stuff. And I have a very consistent music taste, it must be. Occasionally I get influenced by my friends. They're like, oh, do you want to listen to this? But I don't really listen to them very often. I think the most common genres are probably not heavy rock, soft rock, alternative pop music, that kind of thing. And yeah, I think I used to do a lot of writing. Like I used to write poetry a little bit. I did that as a sort of way to offload feelings that I couldn't quite describe in prose. As I mentioned, I really like acting. I love performance. I love using my extracurriculars as an excuse because I'm doing work. Okay, it's very serious business. And then I do read manga and stuff like that, but it's when I have 5 minutes and nothing else to do kind of thing. I'm still pretty into it, but never got the time for it, unfortunately. But yeah, so those are probably my major interests and hobbies.
Yeah, nice. I love that. I feel like you have such a broad range of things. Like you could never get bored. You got acting, writing, all of that. I used to be really interested. I mean, I still am, but I don't get involved with it as much in acting. I just love it. I was never good at it, but just that aspect of just being something else or someone else.
Yeah.
Just speaking through a different voice, acting in a different. I just loved it so much. Like in year 10, year 9, when we had acting projects, I'll be the first one to want to lead it. I'd want to come up with a script. I'd be like, you do this, you do that. Put that there, put the prop there. I just love that aspect of organizing everything. Have you ever got into like a sport or anything like that? Because I'm a huge football fan.
I mean, I've never followed sports. I mean, I did play a lot of netball in previous years, but I've never actually watched sports before. I think I typically, in terms of just in general, I do a lot more than I watch. So, for example, I barely watched any plays, but I like to be in them. Or I've never watched any, some people like watching gameplay in terms of video gameplay. I hate doing that. I think it's the most boring thing in the world. It's like, I want to be the one doing it. I want to be in it. I feel like I should watch more because maybe I'll learn something. But yeah, I've never really been interested in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I could definitely relate with the like I do more than you watch, because sometimes it can be boring to go through the whole step of like learning when you just do and like learn as you do. Yeah, I feel like I can relate to that. And I want to transition a little bit into like your university choices and your university preferences and stuff like that. How are you sort of preparing for uni? Like, how is your personal statement going? Just that whole process of applying to uni, how's it going for you?
So I've already made my application. I've applied to Cambridge, Warwick, Exeter, St Andrews, and Southampton, with Southampton sort of being a safe option for me. And yeah, I've received 4 offers from everyone except Cambridge, for which I have an interview in just over a week's time, actually, on the 12th. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure, but I think a lot of it's been relieved by the fact that I have got offers now, and all of my other offers are very, like, I don't mean to be arrogant, but I would be more shocked if I didn't meet those offers, because they are so like low compared to my predicted grade that I'm just kind of, yeah, I'm very sort of looking forward to the future in that regard. Yeah, Cambridge, it's difficult. I am somewhat afraid because Cambridge, so there are 2 types of philosophy, because I'm applying for philosophy. There are 2 types. They're not very, it's not a very useful, distinct, like, category to put them in, but people do. One called analytical philosophy and one called continental philosophy. And analytical philosophy is the kind that most universities in England offer, in the UK, sorry, offer, which is very much like logic and perception and reality based. Like, how do we know what we know? How do you prove this through either empirical evidence or through reasoning? How can you use logic and manipulate these almost like mathematical equations to prove that your argument is sound? That's the kind of philosophy that they do. Cambridge, very heavy influence in that. But my personal statement, unfortunately, that's the one instruction that they gave me when I went to the talk for Cambridge, was that if you put my personal statement was primarily continental philosophy, which meant that I put in my personal statement what I wasn't necessarily. It made it look like I didn't really know what was on the course for Cambridge, which I did. But it's just because the philosophy, like continental philosophy, is a little bit broader. It's like, meaning. And that I was really interested in meaning at the time, which is why I had done a lot of reading on it. I had written that essay on it. I had done the presentation on it. I had done so much on it that I thought, how could I not put this in my personal statement? Like, it's really in-depth research that I've been doing. So put that in my personal statement. And I mean, they still liked it. I still got an interview. But yeah, I'm just kind of fingers crossed they don't ask me too much beyond my personal statement, because otherwise I might get a bit stuck. But yeah, otherwise I'm looking forward to the interview. I've had a mock interview. I've had a couple mock interviews and they've gone well, reasonably well. I think they just go well because I really like talking about like the things that I'm interested in. And so when I get asked a really nice question, it's just like, oh my goodness, I can talk about this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am generally looking forward to that in the short term. And then in the long term, I cannot wait to be out of education or like out of sixth form. Like, I cannot wait. I really, 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 really want to be in a situation where I can have time. Because, okay, yes, university, you got to work hard. You got to do all those things you got to do. You got to like pay attention in your lectures and you got to do well, because otherwise it's a waste of money, right? But I will have freedom.
Yeah.
I won't be stuck in this tiny boarding house. I won't have to do things that I technically don't have to do. Like, you should go to your lectures, obviously, but you don't have to. Like, you can do extracurriculars and you can invest time in them. You could even get a job if you really wanted to. You could talk to people, you could visit societies, you could visit people, and I'd have freedom to do so, because by that point I'd be an adult. So I'm very much looking forward to being in university. Like, you almost have no idea.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, university is a great place to exercise your independence. Like, I've learned that so many people approach it in so many different ways. I have friends that attend every single lecture, and I have friends that don't attend lectures at all because they learn better by revising by themselves, and they still do really well at uni. So I feel like it's a place where you can find yourself and just do what works for you, definitely. But about your Cambridge interview, I feel like you have nothing to be stressed about at all. You're definitely gonna smash it, and you're definitely gonna do well. Plus, you've got 4 already. It's definitely gonna be just a trend, a ripple effect where you're gonna get the 5th one. So I am wishing you the best in that. But we are coming up to the final segment of the podcast, so we are gonna take one final break, guys, and then we will be right back. Don't go anywhere. Make sure you subscribe.
This is not a myth anymore, guys. Global warming and climate change is right here, and it's not going anywhere for quite a long time. If you want to learn more on how to reduce your carbon footprint and how to adopt more eco-friendly practices into your lifestyle, then this is the blog for you. Make sure you follow this blog on Medium. It has tons and tons and tons of engaging blogs that will teach you and explore with you the different ways that you can make your life more sustainable, more eco-friendly, and more green. But also, if you're someone who's interested in finance, then don't go anywhere, because this same blog, guys, also focuses on exploring sustainable financial practices. So this is the perfect blend. Not only finance and the money and the assets and the financial industry, but you also have eco-friendliness, sustainability, and how to reduce your carbon footprint. These two go hand in hand, and if you are interested in such topics, then do me a favor, go to the Medium site right now. You can even download the app and follow the blog page. You can do that quickly. It doesn't take any time at all, but it's gonna have a massive impact on teaching you on how to improve your lifestyle and how to have a much more sustainable impact on the planet.
Welcome back, guys. After the break, we are leading into the final segment of the podcast. Again, thank you so much for giving up your time for this. Honor, I feel like I reached out to your mom, and I was messaging your mom, and I was trying to get her onto the podcast at first, but then she was like, "Oh, I won't be able to do it, but I have a daughter who might be very interested." And it was just like a massive segue. I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. I'll message her then." So again, thank you so much to you and your mom for making this happen. Before we end, I usually love to ask our guests, like, are there any sort of inspirational advice, tips, and stuff like that you want someone to take away from this video when they watch it?
I think, just sort of as the overarching theme of everything I've talked about with you today, I think that just in terms of maybe life in general, and I'm, saying this as a 17-year-old, but I think having the ability to realize that change is okay is something that, it can take a very long time and some very sort of difficult times to realize that it's fine for things to just go the way that they go, because you will come out of them, whether this takes an hour, a day, a month, a year. You will come out of that period of time in your life. You will be able to continue. Pain does not last forever. And so just always kind of holding on to hope is definitely something that I would say, if you're struggling, just remember that. Just remember to hold on to hope, because it will come. Times will change. Change is inevitable. And so bad will become bad, and on and on and on.
Yeah.
Just remember that.
Yeah, that's a message. And like, that relates so much to this saying. Actually, I heard it from like a YouTube video. It was like, what you go through, you grow through. And that just stays the time. Like, anytime I'm going through anything, I'm just like, what you go through, you're going to grow through. Like, you don't have to like stress about it or try so hard to change it. Sometimes what you're going through in the present is there for a reason. So thank you so much for that inspirational message. And also, are there any sort of questions that I haven't asked you that you just want to talk about? You want to answer something, and you're like, oh, this guy hasn't talked about this.
Honestly, I really don't know. I think we've covered so much in like 2 hours. I cannot believe that we've been talking for this long. Like time just flew so quickly. But you know, we've covered a lot, so I'm completely content with what we've talked about today.
Yeah, nice. Me too. I feel like we've delved so deep into so many different things, stuff for the audience as well, like to pick up on and advice and stuff. But I feel like stuff for me as well. Like I've learned a lot about just philosophy and just how you approach life and how you learn things and how you navigate yourself and your surroundings and things like that. And I have picked up a lot as well. So thank you again so much for just your presence and your insights and everything that you have, spoken about on this podcast. And hopefully, maybe sometime in next year or next 2 years, you want to come back again, just let me know. There's definitely going to be space for you. So yeah, if you are ever.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. But
I'm really grateful to you as well.
Yeah. Thank you. But anyways, have a great day. I hope you smash everything in year 13, and definitely going to be looking forward to that.
Thank you very much. All right.